Welcome back to the Now Morning Show at 6:25 a.m. and it's time for us to shine a spotlight on an icon.
Welcome back to the show. We are continuing. It's a tribute to Danielle Dieffenthaller. And to do that, we are speaking with Mariel Brown, filmmaker and director of the TNT Film Festival. We want to say good morning to you, Mariel, while acknowledging loss. And now is a point in time that words don't necessarily execute or implement that full breadth of emotion. But let me start off by saying condolences and ask you just opening salvo in terms of what is it that Danielle Dieffenthaller would have meant to this space?
Hi, DK. Thank you so much for having me on. And when I was contacted last night to be on the program this morning, I said it would be an honor to come on and talk about Danielle because her impact on the television and video space, the local production sector in the sort of screen industries has been absolutely profound and transformative. And I remember as a young woman, I was working at TTT actually as a junior reporter when Danielle was pitching Westwood Park to the head of sales at the time at TTT, Jackie Lazarus. And I remember I was attending an event on behalf of TTT, at which they were announcing that Westwood Park would be made. This would be the first season of Westwood Park, and Danielle and her team, her tiny team, had gone out and shot a really tenacious pilot for Westwood Park. And I was just blown away by this young woman. She was so determined and proud and utterly committed to storytelling and really making a drama series or a soap opera series in Trinidad at a time when really there wasn't anything like that going on. I mean, there had been things previously. There had been No Boundaries. There had been Calabash Alley and things like that. But in terms of an independent production, making something that was absolutely, riveting and that people just talk like real water cooler kind of television, I think she was absolutely inspirational. I was in television as a news person at the time, but I also remember when the music video for Three Canal Blue came out. I was also working at TTT at the time. And again, it just completely, absolutely floored by the creative brilliance and energy and joy and expression of Trinidad culture that she was able to capture with that music video. I mean, it was just absolutely brilliant. And so exciting. I'd loved Three Canal Juve since the very first year, I think it was. And so to see them coming together in this way to perform and create a music video and something that felt so completely Trinidadian was just absolutely exciting and also very, very inspirational. There are moments in your life as a creative person that really speak to you and tell you about the possibility of what you can do, but also tell you why you're doing what you're doing. And the Blue music video was certainly one of those things for me. And when I left news and started to really engage in production, making a television show, I think, looking back at it, it occurred to me that I could do that because Danielle was doing it. I made a totally different kind of television show, which was cooking and lifestyle, Sankosh. But she was really, I don't know, she was absolutely, doing this kind of work in Trinidad is really hard. Because there isn't really enough infrastructure to support the development of television productions, television dramas. You need a full crew, script writers, actors, locations, and these are very expensive things to do. So I know from doing myself, the kind of courage and determination and stick with itness and utter conviction it takes to make a television series in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think, Danielle really, really fought the fight in every way for this thing that she loved, which was to tell stories of Caribbean people, right?
And there's so many things that you said that I want to go back and ask about. There's this emphasis that you put on local production, and you also spoke to the level of commitment that you need to get it done in this space. But I want to ask, though, in terms of, because at certain ways it feels almost as though there's a bit of a BC and AD in terms of before and after her coming on the scene, that level of influence. But do you think that a template of sort was created in terms of, because this is before, Westwood Park is before reality TV, and this level of ground that was broken, but in terms of trying to make something that is sustainable, local, and yet is able to tell a story that is not just localized to Trinidad and Tobago. What do you think about in terms of like setting that kind of template or blazing that trail?
I mean, I think that as an independent production, Danielle worked for Banyan, and also I think what Danielle had, and which was truly inspirational to me, was this firm and complete belief that what she imagined could happen would happen. There was a way to get to it, and there was a way that it could be done. And she gathered around her a team of creative people who really worked with her to support that vision. People like Eden Bala and Mervyn de Gouge. And then and Walt Lovelace. And she just really stuck with that. She had so much courage that cannot be understated. And she also worked at TTT on television programs like No Boundaries, which was a dramatic series, right? So I think that what she was able to do was to push the conversation forward quite dramatically, in a way that at the time, and for my generation in particular, my generation of creative people, people were absolutely drawn to her. I have so many friends who worked on Westwood Park in one way or the other. When I tell you so many friends, and so many people in the industry worked on Westwood Park at one point or another. Cameramen, editors, actors. Westwood Park even, I remember it being filmed in my house. An episode of Westwood Park was being filmed in the living room of my house, and I was in television at the time, but I wanted to learn more about production, and I just remember being so excited by having Westwood Park and Natasha Jones and people outside in our living room, kind of filming this cultural phenom. It really was.
And you say that, and you make me think of people recounting stories of when there was going to be a show or an event at the Little Carib Theatre, because everybody kind of trying to be out of the view so that Beryl McBurney can see them to get some of the chairs, because she needs chairs for the space. And that reminds me of that story that anecdote that you just would have shared in terms of Westwood Park being filmed in your living room. But, and I think we can still talk about is and use it in the present because the influence is still there, the energy is still there. But Danielle would have said that pitching and convincing people that Westwood Park was something that needed to be done was one of the hardest things that she would have done. And sometimes there needs to be somebody who can code switch and speak different languages. Some people only understand the bottom dollar, what's in it for them. Some people understand the fact that there's this level of art that can speak to us. How important do you think that she was there in that moment, able to speak these two languages, to pull these, and some people may call very disparate groupings together?
I mean, she really understood about production, right? And she understood about fundraising. And I don't know if that was something she just sort of knew or if something she learned as she went along. Certainly, I learned as I went along about how to fundraise. But she was kind of tenacious and unrelenting. The challenging thing with Trinidad is that sometimes it can feel like no matter, and I think I expressed this, I wrote an obituary for Danielle on behalf of the Trinidad Tobago Film Festival yesterday. And I think one of the challenging things that we face in Trinidad is this idea that it can sometimes feel like you're not actually moving forward, that every time you come with a new project or a new idea, you need to start from the beginning, as if you haven't already proven yourself and your capacity and the success of your ideas. And I think Danielle certainly felt the profound frustration and at times devastation of that kind of thing. And I have no doubt, reflecting on it last night while I was working on the obituary, it seemed to me that, she chose to remain in Trinidad. She could have developed her career anywhere because she was so talented and so determined. And I think that, she gave us many gifts, and Westwood Park being one of those things. But I also think that it never stopped being hard to raise money and got increasingly difficult. And for a person who has proven their worth time and again, that can be very, very demoralizing. And stymieing. And I think that her creative output was reduced simply as a result of challenges raising money. I mean, I was there when I was tangentially involved in this new television series that she had been developing for quite some time called Plain Sight. And she was shooting the pilot and she had raised some money. And then, we all know in production, that it's, you raise some money, you do some filming, you raise some money, you do some more filming. And she was never able to raise enough money to complete the pilot. And even though she had interest in the series from international distributors, and that, I think Plain Sight would have been really, really exciting. I saw clips of the pilot. I helped her on a crowdfunding campaign, and so I saw elements of it that were really interesting and compelling. But I think that is the challenging thing about Trinidad, and the challenge, and it was at times an insurmountable challenge for Danielle, and then throw that into the mix. It was when she was working on Plain Sight that she developed renal failure. So I've strayed a little bit, but I think she did remarkable things with what she had, and her team of creatives and the commitment to storytelling in Trinidad was profound. And she shaped it. It is not hyperbole. She shaped a generation of people in the performing and creative arts in Trinidad. Westwood Park shaped a generation of people.
And that the way that you talk about that team of people and that sphere of influence, Westwood Park is one thing, is distinct, and is one measure of output, but another one that I want you to speak to a little bit in terms of the fact that you would have been partners at Filmco is sharing that belief that a collective is possible. And if I remember correctly, she was also saying that we have to believe that the cultural pie is infinite, as opposed to saying it could be either or. We're looking at the and. And how does that shape the conversation going forward?
I mean, I think that Danielle believed, like I did, and do, when people would say to me on television programs when I was being interviewed, do you think people want to watch local content? I mean, it was such a no-brainer to me, and not just a no-brainer, but slightly kind of, gosh, really, is that what we're still saying? Is that a question that we're still asking? Because I felt fundamentally that Westwood Park had proven the point that people wanted to watch local content. I remember there was a time when, in the days when media surveys were conducted, when Westwood Park was second only to the TV6 News in national viewership. I mean, it was. When I say a phenom, that's not hyperbole. And so she believed utterly in the value of telling our own stories and making our own things and making them well. And also, when I say the value, not just the cultural value or the emotional value, but also the product value. Yes, Westwood Park remains a product that is still being sold and watched all over the world. And she recognized that what it took to make that, and therefore she felt that it was a product that had cash value, which needed to be paid for. And this was a firm belief of all of us at Filmco, that actually television programs and films made by Caribbean people do have value, that they shouldn't be given away for free, that they shouldn't be requested for free, that if somebody wants to broadcast it or show it at the cinema, there needs to be a fee. And I think this was fundamental to us at Filmco, and certainly something that Danielle deeply lived by. This is not to say, I mean, she also did a lot of work with charities and going out and filming for causes that she was connected with and things like that. So it's not to say that she was not an avaricious person, but she felt fundamentally, because of the work that had been put in and the energy that had put in, that these things have value that need to be recognized. And that was definitely a uniting, a sort of coalescing point for all of us who were founders of Filmco.
And in terms of coalescing around the fact that we are celebrating the work that she has done, the legacy that she has left for people who may not even know that they're going to be in this space as yet, so that there is not this level of forgetfulness, I guess. But we want to thank you very much for sharing, especially at this time, Mariel Brown, filmmaker, one of those heads of the people behind the director of the TNT Film Festival, sharing your tribute, your memories of Danielle Dieffenthaller. And we want to thank you for tuning in. This is the Now Morning Show. We continue after this. Stay with us.
I walked into TDT at 17 and said I want a job because I had seen an after-school program where people were actually on the TV looking like me. And they're like, we don't hire minors, so come back when you're 18. So I went away and I came back when I was 18 and said, okay, I'm 18, I want a job. And they made me wait for like 3 months, but that's a whole other story. I would start as a trainee reporter in the newsroom. I never wanted to be a reporter. I mean, it used to be, felt good to be talking to my English literature teacher who told me, you know, I was like a crazy person, basically. So I used to like, I'm telling you the news, you have to listen to me. I found it to be a place where I had opportunities and I took that. I basically ninjaed and jumbied Horace to put me on the crew where I was the entire production department. Being the person that got the food, the person that took the notes, the script supervisor, the PA, the person that, you know, well, the wardrobe person sometimes the makeup artist. So it just whatever needed to be done, I did it. And we made it happen with 5 people. It was the most amazing experience. I think it's
on television occurred to Danielle Dieffenthaller early on, as she lived much of her early life outside of Trinidad.
When I was about 13, we left Trinidad. My stepfather was
Welcome to the land of Calypso, the land called Trinidad and Tobago.